Seattle's Chinatown-International District is the only area in the continental United States where Chinese, Japanese, Vietnamese, Filipinos, and African Americans settled together to build one neighborhood. Today, the neighborhood remains a vibrant hub for Asian American businesses, community organizations, and residents. In May 2023, the National Trust for Historic Preservation named the Chinatown International District as one of America's 11 most endangered historic places. This designation comes as Sound Transit plans to build another light rail station in the neighborhood, which could have detrimental consequences for the community. Unfortunately, this is just one of many projects that have threatened the Chinatown International District since the late 1800s.
The earliest kind of envisioning of where Sound Transit 3 station was to have it really close to either 4th Avenue or on 5th Avenue. And this is kind of in a long line of different kind of infrastructure projects that are specifically kind of put upon the shoulders of the Chinatown International District. I think what becomes really apparent too is that when you look at those options, those were kind of not really options, right? So the first option for 5th Avenue was would essentially tent the Chinatown International District Gateway Arch. The proposal was also to kind of take out that whole block that's right by the gate. So essentially, if you know where Pink's Dumpling House is, where Musashi's is, that whole kind of section and area, which was seen as kind of in the earliest iterations as like not historically important, but also we know that there's a lot of kind of love in these spaces, community building in those spaces that we have. The 4th Avenue option was going to be a deep tunnel station that would have kind of shifted the bus transit on 4th Avenue to be stopped and diverted, rerouted to different spaces, which you can imagine would cause a little bit of extra pressure onto the Chinatown International District. So I think with Sound Transit, it just highlights kind of a longer narrative around this neighborhood kind of being not considered an important voice, right? Not being considered an important viewpoint to understand kind of who you're getting rid of with large citywide projects. This goes all the way back to the beginnings of the Chinatown neighborhood. We have the first Chinatown essentially being kicked out of space because of the 1886 anti-Chinese riots. And essentially what that was mob violence took out and displaced those business owners, essentially with threat of violence telling them to leave the city and pushing them out. Those folks that returned back built up a Chinatown really close to what would be Union Station area. And then in 1928, you have the 2nd Avenue extension essentially cutting into this area that was seen as the first Chinatown for some people, but we also like to identify that first kind of pocket of businesses as the first Chinatown. So second Chinatown gets displaced because of a huge citywide street being built upon it and getting rid of that quote unquote slum. And then we have the regrade projects. That was interesting because it created the neighborhood that we know of today, was the Chinatown International District. And so with the regrade projects, it looked at Jackson Street, this really tall hill, and looked at what was underneath it, which was kind of this whole area of hotels, and essentially kind of got rid of that whole space. In 1942, then you have the Executive Order 9066 being signed by President Franklin Delano Roosevelt that really kind of signaled an end to a Japantown that was about 60 blocks of the city. So we see this kind of large kind of moment in time where we have these blocks closed down. Those families have to leave within 2 weeks' time. And so you have an area which was essentially boarded up, a whole part of the city. The I-5 freeway to another kind of large development that was put on the shoulders of the Chinatown International District. The I-5 freeway was built essentially cleaving what was Japantown in half. And you also see some folks who might have, after being displaced after World War II as Japanese Americans and Japanese immigrants, right, we have them coming perhaps back to Seattle. And then you have the I-5 freeway then kicking them out of those same spaces through eminent domain. So it's just really kind of powerful to think about the domino effect of that displacement. We fast forward then to not so distant future of the King Dome being built. There was a lot of awareness by the second generation folks who've seen multiple different projects happen to their part of the city, to their family homes, to their elders' apartments, right? Then we have a lot of protests, a lot of pushback then to say the kingdom's kind of like the last straw after you see so many different changes as part of your community. While the kingdom wasn't stopped, I think it really had the need for the city to then understand the International District's voice was important, or at least needed to be considered for any future projects. The community really is those people you walk past. It's really the people that you can wave to. I say that this is the one neighborhood in the city or wherever I've grown up where you can walk down the street and wave to folks and recognize faces and have conversations talking about the weather with different folks down the street. So the Chinatown International District is the community behind it, not necessarily just the businesses that occupy the spaces.
My name is Trin Ong, and I came from Vietnam. I left Vietnam and I came here as a refugee, as a boat people. I had a BA degree in accounting. I worked in the field for a few years, and I realized that's not what I want to do for the rest of my life. So meanwhile, my brother, who had Milagay back then, we situated in on Rainy and Dearborn, the old locations. He suggested, why don't you come and try to help me? And said, is that what I want to do? I wasn't sure. So I said, okay, let's try. And then I got hooked. I realized, I love to communicate with people. I love to talk. I love to make friends. And many of my customers eventually become my good friends. We own the restaurants in June of 1992 until now. I was like, oh my gosh, where am I supposed to go now? Because I don't see anywhere that put up the sign for lease, and I don't want to leave Chinatown. Very nervous, don't know, because the time frame that he gave us is too short and don't have much time to look for the space. But I guess God looks after me. So I found this place. A day I sell like a few bowls, not even cover electricity, not even enough the money that I collect. It was tough, and there was time that I was really depressed, really down, that don't know what tomorrow look like. Many times I thought, let's close it. And well, I will try to hold on until I can't hold it. I close it. Chinatown should be a special place for everyone, not just the Asian. Tourists from cruise or from other states, they still want to come to Chinatown. Come by Milagay to have a bowl of noodle soup, which is a comfort food for me, but also to visit Chinatown again, bring it back to life. It's still a place for gathering.
Hi, my name is Shara Amlak. I'm the co-owner of Hood Famous Bake Shop and Hood Famous Cafe and Bar. I think when my husband and I started doing the pop-ups, we knew we wanted to do Filipino food. It's who we were. We loved cooking it. We loved serving it and just gathering around it. This neighborhood has always been really important to my husband and I in kind of our formative young adult years, a place where we got politicized, a place where we continued to learn about our own history, our own um, just cultural contributions to this area. We actually are sitting in historical Filipino town. When we opened up our cafe and bar in 2019, at that time we were the only Filipino American restaurant in the district. We wanted to really reclaim our historical presence here, our current contributions, our past contributions, and I think what better way than to actually be in a physical space that's unapologetically Filipino, but at the same time really welcoming also of other cultures. When I looked at one of the options and it being right in front of our doors, I did get really nervous. We're a business that opened a year before the pandemic and celebrated our 1-year anniversary here with the shutdown of our dining room, and since then have been really navigating the pandemic. It's really impacted small businesses, and we're still just trying to get out of the hole, but continuing to lean in and just celebrate that our community has really kept our doors open. I'm glad that I think fifth is not going to be an option anymore. However, we still don't know exactly where it's going to be. But in the meantime, how do we ensure that as we're moving towards that our small businesses stay alive, that we stay open, and there is a responsibility of Sound Transit and government to ensure that it's something we don't have any control of if our guests can't access us, like that there is a thoughtful conversation and action for mitigation for small businesses. In a city that is drastically changing, in a city that is getting less and less affordable, and in a city that continues to displace a lot of residents and businesses, this neighborhood is critical for us to continue to understand really the spirit and the culture of Seattle. Not just this neighborhood, but this neighborhood is a part of Seattle's history.
I was born in Hong Kong, and then I'm in Seattle for over 60 years. My children want me to move out of Chinatown. They don't think Chinatown is as safe as we used to be. I moved away for for a month, and then I moved back because I feel like I'm still young and I can do a lot of things for the old people, for the homeless people. Senior in Action is we want to encourage the seniors to participate, to vote, and to do things for the government. I want the senior to help each other instead just me helping him, or I want people to help them. We have 1,200 seniors live in Chinatown, many old buildings, and definitely it's changing. So more and more new people moving into Chinatown and want to go, get taller building and bigger building for the wealthy people to live in. I own a piece of property in Chinatown, and people want me to sell it to them so they can build a bigger building, and I say no. So people think that, oh, that's really stupid of you, Nora. Why don't you think of that, we'll make Chinatown better, we'll make the place newer, we'll make the place better. But that's not how I feel. I want to have the Chinatown just like it was a long time ago. I really want the Chinatown to be like my hometown. And your hometown is, you know, everybody. And you go out and everybody say good morning to you and then you smile at them. And I do that and people look at me and say, oh, I just like what Mrs. Chen does. To me is important that we do everything together, that we help each other.
Actionable steps that people can take to save or to help continue the Chinatown-International District story. One of the biggest pieces is to support the mom and pop restaurants and the businesses that make up community today.
Just come and see, browse around. You know, they sell all the traditional stuff and the restaurant is good. Come and support our business out here. Don't be afraid, scared from the news.
I think we're going to create a safer neighborhood as more people are here. When we think about public safety and we think about, you know, maybe some of the perceptions that people have of this district, it's not going to be one thing. It's going to require so many people to come and actually be here. The sheer amount of bodies that are frequenting these businesses and this district is so critical for its survival.
I think it's very important, good labor to your neighbors and help each other and then help the business. Every day of the week, I go to different restaurants to eat and I, get to know people better.
Those relationships beyond anything really transactional is really going to be at the heart of what creates a more successful and thriving neighborhood. You can become a member of the Wing Loop Museum, right, and help contribute to that annually to ensure, that there's continued, funding and support for such a great institution in our neighborhood. There's ways to contribute to the International Examiner as a contributing writer.
I also think there's a really important awareness that these neighborhood spaces should be preserved. I think that means doing a little bit of extra homework on your own end, understanding the places that you're in, understanding the history of this area, and really kind of getting why people are get so worked up about this neighborhood. There's so much of this love and investment into this neighborhood that is beyond my generation, beyond the past generation, but also hoping that the future generation can kind of connect with that.